Hello again. So here we have Steve. We have no idea what's wrong with Steve, or Steve is even broken, but he was part of that 4 Amiga 500 motherboard lot that says they're not working. So as with the other videos, I'm just gonna sort of dry brush things and have a cursory inspection. Yeah, not bad. Yeah, let's do a little bit more cleaning. Okay, let's test for low resistance on the rails like I did on the last one. This should be ground, so 0.6 ohms. This one here should be plus 12, which I get nothing. That's good. The minus 12 should be the same, should get nothing. And the plus 5 gives me like 150 or something, 130, yeah. Okay, so that's testing just like the other boards, the working ones. Alright, let's throw some chips in here. Okay, here we go, power on. Looks like the memory's okay, but detecting if we have a working raster. Not detected. So there's some sort of graphical output problem on this Amiga 500. Oh, this is so cool to have because I got no output on the Amiga screen, on the Amiga RGB. So this gives us a direction to look in. Well, Steve is not really my friend right at the moment because he is defying all diagnosis. I checked all the voltages, I checked all the traces going to and from the memory and the addressing and the data path and Gary and the processor and the ROM. The motherboard's in really good shape, so I don't think it's a broken trace at this point, especially since I've tested almost every one. I haven't tested all of the traces going in and out of Agnes, but actually I probably have, because all the traces going in and out of Agnes probably go to every single other place that I've tested, and I knew better than to go and test things twice. I actually took an oscilloscope and I compared the signals on on Gary between the two. And Gary seems to have the most pins that are doing different things. There's some data lines in Gary that are coming from the processor, and those are stuck high, where on a working motherboard, Baron's been my best friend here. Baron shows me all of the things that are supposed to be working, and then I compare them to what's on the board that's not working. So there are several things that are, a handful of things that are different between the two boards when I test them. But I'm suspecting that most of those things are actually different because the board isn't starting. So which one of these is the cause and which one of them is a result? So I'm kind of a chicken and the egg kind of situation. So at this point, since it's worthwhile doing anyway, I hate to do this because I just haven't gotten any farther on this thing, and I've spent like 20 hours on it, so ridiculous amount of time. So I'm going to go ahead and recap the board just to eliminate that as a possibility. It certainly helps with the the board lasting many years in the future. Anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and replace all the electrolytic capacitors on the board. And then I guess I'm going to start socketing logic. What's weird is when I run DiagROM on this, DiagROM sees all the memory. And when I've piggybacked the chips, it doesn't change a thing. So pretty sure the memory's okay. The memory, when I test signals on it, it all has the signals in the appropriate places. So I'm just, I'm at wit's end here. So now that I can't get any farther on it, I might as well just start throwing parts at it because I'm really curious to find out. It's got to be a logic chip or another discrete component, but I've pretty much tested all of the discrete components. So this board doesn't start up, and with a regular ROM in here, it gets a green screen. So it's something wrong with, you would think, memory, but there are so many different things that can cause a green screen on an Amiga. There's so many different things that can cause the memory not to start. It's really actually quite incredible and aggravating at the same time. Okay, so finally we've gotten somewhere with Steve. After asking on the English Amiga board, I opened up a new forum thread and I got some help. I identified that Gary wasn't enabling its output enable to the logic, and actually the output enable goes right to these two chips here. So I guess these get turned on and then the RAM, whatever. So I chased a lot of gooses before I said, you know what, the RAM looks like it's working. It's coming up on DiagROM like it's working because DiagROM sees the RAM, but maybe all that DiagROM is doing when it's looking at the RAM is it's just looking to make sure it addresses it. The first time perhaps that it actually uses the RAM is when it attempts to draw a raster on the screen. Because this board with DiagROM in it is completely black screen. The only thing you see is on the serial output. So you know, I finally came to the conclusion. I socketed the logic chips. I socketed these four here. I socketed these two here, just thinking that, you know, perhaps the logic is preventing the data from going through. But when it comes right down to it, what's been the problem on most of these when it has bad chip memory? Well, it's the chips itself. So I desoldered the chips, put sockets in, put 4 new chips in, and I'll just turn it on for you. So it was passing this anyway. But look, here we go. Detected raster. And that's it. Steve works. I spent a lot of time resocketing. Well, not a lot of time. I spent most of my time trying to diagnose the problem. I must have rang out every single trace on this board. I certainly did all of the traces to all of the custom chips and the memory, and everything came out with good continuity. I checked all the resistors, all the capacitors. I was kind of desperate at that point. But I should have just went back to the basics. I should have went ahead and socketed the RAM because apparently we've got some bad RAM. Let's find out what is bad. Okay. I'll just do them one at a time until we get a failure. Yes. Okay. But basically what's happening with this RAM is it's able to be addressed, it is somewhat functional, but when you try to either write to it or read to it, it fails. It doesn't return anything. Okay, so that is a bad RAM chip there. Let's just put this aside. The next one over. Put another of the RAM chips in. Turn it on. Okay, so that one's good. Do a proper RAM test when we're all done, but I mean the fact that it gets to the... And of course I mentioned in the other video, once it gets to this point, or maybe earlier in this video, once it gets to this point we see no other serial output. On the RGB output there's actually a menu coming up. But I didn't press the mouse button or key. Holding down the left mouse button will force serial on and turn off the screen. Yeah. So basically you can hit right or left or a key and it'll switch, it'll bring the menu up on the serial. Okay, so one good chip. I didn't pay attention to the order. I just socketed all the chips. I spent so much time on this board. What I want to do, I have a specific purpose for this board. I'm not going to resell it. Because I put so many sockets in it, I'm going to use it as a test board. Because it'll be really easy to remove chips from another board and put it onto this board now. Okay. Yep. So far, 2 of them work. Okay, here's the last one. So, am I suspecting this one's bad? I'm thinking so. Nope, it's good. Only one bad RAM chip. And of course, I've tested that before. One bad RAM chip can make the whole chip RAM not function because of the nature of its parallel connection together. So next stop is going to be to hook a monitor up to this and get the Amiga test kit hooked up and do some proper memory tests and tests of everything else as well. But that's going to require me to put the proper ROMs in here. So maybe we'll go ahead and do a DiagROM test for now, and then we'll pull the DiagROM ROM out and put a regular kickstart in and then boot off the disk. By the way, the one thing that took me away from replacing the RAM or suspecting the RAM is the fact that the very common piggybacking technique of taking good RAM and piggybacking it over the bad did not work for Steve. I tried that and it didn't change Steve's symptoms at all. It's only after replacing the RAM that Steve actually worked. So just a good FYI on that. Piggybacking the RAM is not necessarily going to fix bad RAM, a RAM issue. Alrighty, memory, test all memory. This, I know this does a continuous forever thing, so I think at this point it would have given us an error already. It's a pretty fast test. Just repeats it over and over again, which has a usefulness as far as giving doing a stress test on the memory, getting it to warm up, what have you. Anyway, so keyboard. So we definitely have no problems with the CIA or Gary or whatever in that regard. Let's see. Mouse, joystick, gamepad. Audio, yes. I need some kind of speaker or something. A good use for a smart speaker. Using like a headphone mini plug to RCA. Stereo. Takes an input, there's auxiliary input on that thing, and works pretty good as a test. I don't know, let me see if there's something I can do here. No, not really, it just puts up raster bars. Okay, here's my favorite, F7 CIA. Alright. Yeah. We're good. So that's it. Steve is fixed. Thank you for joining me on another journey.